Let's bring in Ari Fleischer, a former White House press secretary under President Bush and a Fox News contributor. Thank you very much for being here. Ari, good to see you. I'll ask you the question many are asking at this point. Is the president, is he coming to an inflection point in this presidency when you've got more and more Democrats, and it's not just far left Democrats, you've got moderate Democrats like Tim Ryan in Ohio not even showing up for the president's speech yesterday, citing a scheduling conflict. Sounds familiar. And you've got members of the media turning on him as well.
No, I don't think this is the inflection point, Sandra. I think the inflection point will come the day after the November election. Just picture this scene. Democrats lose the House. Democrats potentially lose the Senate. They start to head right away into the re-election year, the re-election cycle for the President of the United States, control of the White House. Do they really want to invest it in who will then be an about to turn 80-year-old president with an unpopular record, a bad economy, the nation heading on the wrong track, and they don't think they can do better than anybody else other than Joe Biden? They don't want somebody younger, somebody with more vigor. That's the storm that the Democrats will unleash on Joe Biden the day after the election. Everything from now through then is the building crescendo that's going to lead to that storm.
Really interesting. Here's just a bit, Ari, of the media in recent days even turning on the president. Listen.
There is this sense that things are kind of out of control and he's not in command.
The president of the United States has to organize, and I'm not sure what he's doing. I can tell you what he ain't doing.
We need Joe Biden to be present and to be a leader that meets this moment.
The person who can stop the court is the executive of the United States, the president of the United States. But right now, and I wouldn't say that I'm angry at Biden right now. I am sad.
They're not being so quiet about this anymore, Ari.
Yeah, and frankly, it reminds me of the last 2 years, I'm sorry to say, of President George W. Bush's administration, when many Republicans cut and ran against George W. Bush, criticized him in an effort to save themselves. And when that happens and you're in the White House, it's almost a feeling of despair. You really don't know what to do, what to say, because it's being driven by events. It's not as if you can give a speech or hold a rally and fix this. This is the consequence of Joe Biden's policies. That's why Democrats are ditching him. If you're a Democrat, you ask yourself one question: what's going right? And I think even Democrats have a very difficult time answering that question in any way that gives them faith or confidence in Joe Biden. And now you're starting to hear it from more and more Democrats.
Because you've got voters asking themselves that same question. And certainly you've seen the poll after poll after poll. 10% of the country feels like this country, a mere 10%, is going in the right direction. Ari, I want to ask you about the news that we just brought our viewers top of the hour there, the resignation of Boris Johnson. Quite a piece in the Wall Street Journal just a few moments ago talking about this, the rise and fall of Boris Johnson. And I want to ask you about it. The subtitle: he campaigned from the right but governed from the left. Voters noticed. The Wall Street Journal editorial board is writing about this failure in office, Boris Johnson, as a warning to conservative parties, speaking of which, around the world, that governing to the left on economics is a losing strategy. Wow. I mean, there can certainly be some parallels here at home.
Powerful parallels here at home. And I think the Republican Party gets it here in America now. I think there's been a real epiphany among conservatives, among Republicans, about these various issues. Europe is fascinating to me because there is a tendency to win from the right and then govern from the left. It's almost an appeasement of the media in Europe, of the intelligentsia in Europe, and Boris Johnson fell for it, I'm afraid. The unsettled nature of British politics is another piece of that. I think post-Brexit, the mood in Great Britain remains very difficult for anybody to corral. They've had such instability with several of their most recent prime ministers. The last one who lasted any length of time was Tony Blair. And since then, I think we've had 4 or 5 British prime ministers.
Wow. Ari Fleischer, it was great to see you. I know we're going to have you back next week. Thank you so much, and good to see you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you there, Ari.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. From Tucker Carlson tonight.